That's why they keep talking about, in Kansas and in Missouri and all across the country, it's why they keep talking about messaging. It's why they keep talking about rebranding. Because generally you don't rebrand when your brand is on top, right? There's something not going well with your brand when you're rebranding, right? Like you don't overhaul your engine when it's running great, okay? So they're focused on messaging and how are they going to talk about their ideas in a way that's going to get more people to vote for them. And here's a really simple thing, because here's the thing about politics. Here's what I've learned, is that you can look at polls, you can look at all this stuff, you can try and thread the needle and act like you've got to say just exactly the right thing to get voters to come your way. But the truth is, voters are paying a lot more attention than politicians generally give them credit for. And so the fact is that you can re-message or rebrand or do that stuff all you want, but it really won't cover up the fact that you have bad ideas. And that's what's really going on in the Republican Party right now, is there are some people who recognize that some of their ideas are bad, and there are other people who want to double down on the ideas. So it presents an enormous opportunity for you and for us in Missouri and around the country. And that opportunity is a really simple one. It's to talk about our ideas and how they're different. And so as you work on your research and as you work on figuring out how you're going to come back and how you're going to win the gubernatorial election, for instance, I have a suggestion for you, or whether it's a congressional race, because some of these issues are federal. I have three suggestions for you as to what I think you talk about when you talk about our ideas. The first is Medicaid expansion. Kansas, like Missouri, is a state, for us it's because of the legislature, for you it's because of both the legislature and the governor. You've not expanded Medicaid, right? When you explain to people, and it doesn't take long, it's a sentence or two, to explain to Kansans, or in our state we've proven it with Missourians, because in Missouri it overwhelmingly polls that people want Medicaid expansion. When you tell people what this issue is about, they think that the Republican position on it makes no sense, because it doesn't. So 96% of the money will be put up by the federal government to pay for Medicaid expansion. And as a result, more Kansans are going to get health care. And by the way, the money that I'm talking about is taxes that Kansans are already paying. There's no, if you don't expand Medicaid, you don't have to pay for it. No, the only difference is you pay for Iowa's Medicaid, right? And for all the other states, the 26 states that have expanded Medicaid, you're paying for them to do that. So you may as well use those same dollars and have them come back here, right? It seems like a no-brainer. It clearly is not a no-brainer to some of the Republicans in Topeka, right? And I don't get that, because folks, this is the best deal that Kansas has seen since the federal government bought your state from France for 3 cents an acre. Right? It's the most obvious thing in the world, okay? And when you explain that to Kansans, they're going to agree. And I think if it were me, my argument would be, let's be honest with what's going on. We should say that not liking the president very much, or being afraid of losing a Republican primary, are morally bankrupt reasons to deny health care to the working poor. Right? They are morally bankrupt reasons to do that, and that is the argument that I think you should make. You should talk about that idea. The second idea I think you should talk about is the minimum wage. The president has proposed, he proposed about a year ago, raising the minimum wage to $9 an hour, which is still just under $19,000 a year, by the way, right? There are 3.5 million Americans who make about the minimum wage, right? So that's 3.5 million families in this country who, just to start with, we know it affects them, we know that they agree with us on the issue. But you'd probably be surprised to know that 73% of Americans actually support raising the minimum wage to $10 an hour. So I think you should get out there and advocate the idea of giving Kansans a raise. Because if you do that, I think people will respond. And I don't think it takes much explaining at all. The third idea is a little more general. And it is, don't be crazy. Right? I think you just make the argument that it takes a little bit of common sense. And I think that people, even Republican voters, are starting to recognize that there's not a lot of common sense, but there is a lot of politics going into the ideas that are coming from the Republican side right now. I think that people see that. And so the idea is, don't be crazy. And I would offer you an analogy as to why I think this creates an enormous opportunity for you, particularly in statewide races. And it's this: how many of you are fans of college sports, either football or basketball? You follow it a little bit. We're in Lawrence, so probably not football. I promised Kellen I would not make that joke. It's funny, when I made that joke, I thought it was a Mizzou joke, but apparently half of you thought it was a K-State joke. It's interesting what just happened. All right, so the analogy is this, is that sometimes you see, when you watch college sports, you will see either whether it's a quarterback or a point guard or whatever it is, whatever sport it is, you will see somebody who just puts up crazy numbers at the college level, right? I mean, they are breaking records. Now, sometimes they're just a star, but sometimes they are somebody who is part of a program that is outstanding, has had a great coach there for 10 years, and has put in an offense that is going to make sure that they open holes and run people down the field, no matter who's running the ball, right? Or no matter who's throwing the ball. Sometimes it's just a great coach who's put together a great offense that moves the ball well, and they're going to score a lot of points. And what happens when you have just a great system that you've come out of is then you get to the professional level, you get to the show, whether it's the NFL, NBA, whatever it is, and you're no good, right? Because you don't have that system around you anymore. You were able to be plugged into a great system, do a decent job, and put up great numbers. The analogy here is your state legislature, okay? You now have an overwhelmingly Republican state legislature, right? And not just, you've had one for a while, but now you have an overwhelmingly, like you for a long time had a whole lot of Republicans in your legislature who, if they had moved across the state line to Missouri, they would have been Democrats, right? Let's be honest, that's, you had moderate Republicans who felt like that's how they can get elected, right? They're not there anymore. You have an overwhelmingly conservative state legislature. You have a system, like at the college athlete level, you have a system that has allowed them to raise money, to move up in the leadership ranks by being extremely conservative. So that's what they think is the mother's milk to doing well in politics. That's what they think is going to get them there now, right? And so then when they transition to the statewide level, it doesn't work, right? Because the way you get ahead in the state legislature when it's overwhelmingly conservative is you make sure that there is no daylight on your right. Okay, that's the only way they can do it. That's how they move up to a leadership position. That's how they raise more money. That's how they get the attention of large ideological donors. And then you get all of a sudden to the statewide level, and you think, because that's the legislature you came out of, that all you have to do is win a Republican primary, and then you're golden, right? That's what they believe. Trust me, I've seen this in my state, okay? And so they keep doing it that way. They keep going out, and they make sure that there's no room on their right. And that's when you get it, because all of a sudden they find themselves in a general election. And you can't win a general election by making sure that there's no room on your right. And that creates an enormous opportunity for you to tell people that the issue here is don't be crazy. The issue is exercise some common sense, because that's really what I think Kansans are about. Yes, the state leans Republican, but it is overwhelmingly full of people on either side of the aisle who I think just want to have people talk common sense to. And that's what you're able to do. So those are the issues I think you should put forward. And to wrap it up, what I would do is I would take you back to sort of where we started, to that Afghan woman, and how she always did what she thought was right. She had the courage to do what she thought was right, whether or not it was easy. And I think that's the responsibility of our generation moving forward. I think certainly in our mostly peaceful politics, the least we can expect of ourselves is to make decisions that are about doing what's right and not just what's easy. I would challenge you to do that because it'll mean a lot to Kansas, and I know that you'll live up to that challenge. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.